More than 20% of the population has hypersensitivity, electromagnetic radiation, and it's growing. In fact, there's 4,500 body functions within the body that are impacted from electromagnetic radiation exposures. 80% are women, 20% of men of that population. If you're electrohypersensitive, you're 99.9% probable you're chemically sensitive. After about 3 to 4 hours of a laptop in your lap, 25% of the male sperm is immobile. Women have hormone imbalance that occurs when there is exposure. The immune system is suppressed. When you have a cell phone next to your body, it's literally suppressing your body's function to protect itself. You are 3 times more likely to have a miscarriage in that first trimester from high levels of exposure. When you're within 1,000 feet of a cell tower, you're 3 times more likely to have cancer. There was actually marks on the breast where the women put the cell phone that generated cancers. No research, none, has been done on 5G. There's just no doubt we are being affected. It's not a debate.
You're listening to Cleanse, Heal, Ignite podcast, and I'm your hostess, Diane Kaiser, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, former pro soccer player, transformational leader, holistic healer, and life purpose coach, helping you and your business awaken to your full potential. We are a transformation tribe of visionaries empowering passion-quenching, heart-centered advice to wellness warrior leaders on self-love, nutrition, mindset, and divorcing perfectionism. Our mission is to help you laugh your way to a sexy belly, love your way to vitality, and live your life with purpose by sharing real talk and truth drops that will help you cleanse your body, heal your hormones, and ignite your life. Side effects of this podcast may include all-day energy, happy hormones, perfect poops, increased confidence, becoming your own best healer, and catching the self-love virus. There's currently no vaccination to protect you from this and no known cure. In most cases, listeners experience a strong desire to accept new challenges, ditch toxic people, follow their heart, and dance like no one's watching. If you experience moods happier than usual, live it unapologetically and share with your social media friends immediately. Do you have an iPhone, an iPad, a cell phone, a computer, a laptop? Do you use Wi-Fi? Do you sit in a home most of the day or an office? Do you live close to telephone poles? Do you live close to telephone towers, Wi-Fi towers, cell phone towers? You guys, this is such an important episode. You may be someone who doesn't think twice about wearing an Apple Watch or some sort of device on your body that emits electronic magnetic frequencies and radiation. But the reason that I brought on my special guest today is because once I became an EMF, EMR certified health practitioner, I really understood the damage that these kinds of wavelengths are causing to our cell powerhouses called mitochondria. So we're all walking around going, why am I so tired? Why am I so tired? Why do I have these issues and symptoms? And many of us have no clue the damage that many of these devices are causing our body and our cute little mitochondria, which are the things inside of the cells that make energy for us. So what you're going to learn in this episode may shock you, pun intended. And what I would like you to listen for is the statistics, how common this is, how much it's causing damage to our body, and also what is impending is something called 5G. We are all being sold a lie that is glamorizing 5G, which is faster internet, faster frequency, faster gaming and streaming. And what this means is that the faster these things are streaming, the more our cells are disrupted, the more our fields are damaged, and the more scattered our brains are. So there's a lot of controversy in this topic. And what I want you to hear here firsthand is how to minimize the impact, and also to understand that this is not just something that happens to some of us, it is happening to all of us. So thankfully, we can still use our phones and live inside of fast Wi-Fi without it damaging our body. And my intention in this episode is for you to hear the alternatives to what we're doing now to help you understand just how to reduce or eliminate EMF and EMR in your life, as well as how this may be affecting your babies, your pets, and elders. This is such an important topic, and I'm really happy that you'll hear it here first. Let's dig in and let's fly.
Hey, warriors. I am Diane Kaiser of DianeKaiser.com. I am the creator of the Warrior Cleanse and Chi Hormone Warrior Transformation, where we help you to cleanse your body, heal your hormones, and ignite your life. So I am what's called a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, among several other letters after my name that make me feel oh so important. Just kidding, ego talk. I'm a yoga teacher. I am a nutrition fitness expert, as well as a detoxification and hormone enthusiast. So today we're going to talk about something that I actually have never talked about publicly and interviewed someone about. So I've been in the closet about this, you guys, for about a year because last year, I got certified in what's called EMF and EMR training as it pertains to our health today. And what that essentially means, we're going to talk to Dan, who's on the other side of the camera today, about this, is how radiation and EMFs, what the heck are those? Don't worry, we're going to talk about those first. How those are affecting our health and our children, our fertility, our energy, our hormones, our gut, everything. I mean, this is such an untapped part of our industry, but it is so necessary for us to learn as consumers, as humans, as health practitioners, and aspiring parents, current parents. This is going to radically alter our future if we don't change the path of the way that we're living in this space, especially with the onset of 5G, which we think, oh yeah, it's great, it's going to make internet faster and everything, but it's actually going to expedite our disease and conditions and symptoms as well. So today I have Dan, and he is the author of Radiation Nation. This is an awesome book. So if you guys want to check this out, we'll talk about a discount code that I have for you later. Actually, I can talk about it now. If you're watching this, you can go to DefenderShield.com and use Warrior20 to get a 20% discount on anything that you would like in there. So if you're watching this and you're like, what is this? And what is this guy talking about? What are the products and why should I have some of these things? We're not just here to sell you guys products. I just wanted to throw that out right now, because if you're listening to this, you're probably going to be, no. You will be super inspired to want to take action, to grab some things in your life to start protecting you and your family. We also will be giving away this, not my phone, but the case for it, unless you want to be my assistant and respond to all my texts and stuff. But this is a cell phone case that is an EMF and EMR protector. We're going to talk about this today with Dan, who is one of the creators of this product. This is about $80 if you bought it online. And what it does is it will actually protect you from the exposure of the offset of your phone, your computer. Well, this is for your phone actually. But keeping this case in your phone, it's got like little credit card cases on the inside. I just take this everywhere I go in my car keys, and it's pretty much all that I need. And I can actually touch my phone, because quick story, last year I was struggling so much with touching my computer, touching my phone, and touching my computer, I mean my laptop, that I could not do it without keeping myself a distance away. And we're going to talk about what that means today. But essentially, I became what's called hypersensitive. And no, I'm not a hypochondriac. No, you're not a hypochondriac. No, you're not weird. A lot of this stuff is actually happening today, and it's way more common than you think. So until I figured this out and cracked this code, as well as saw this in several of the clients that we work with in our programs, I went, what's going on? And then I went through all this and I went, every human needs to know this, because it's not just some of us, it's many of us.
Dan, thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate having a chance to chat with you and your audience about this subject I love to talk about. I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, you guys, Dan is extremely passionate about this, as am I, with your health. So today we're going to get into some of the questions that you've seen in the chat on the side. But first, Dan, if you could just tell me, you wrote this book, Radiation Nation, Your Complete Guide to EMF Radiation Safety. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got into the business of EMF and EMR. Like, how did you get into that?
Many years ago, I worked for the Bell Labs, the Bell system, and I used to run all the technical analysis and developed all the standards for the Bell system when it deployed technologies into the network. So fast forward about 5-6 years ago, my boys, who are men, were visiting and had their laptops on their lap. My wife says, I want grandchildren. That can't be good for you. And I thought about it and I said, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. These levels, the power levels are too low. They can't be something that can bother you. But I said, well, let me take a quick look. So I looked onto the research side of of the space, and I was shocked about how much we actually knew in the research community about exposures to electromagnetic radiation. And in fact, what I found was that after about 3 to 4 hours of a laptop in your lap, 25% of the male sperm is immobile. And so that's like pretty serious. And by the way, there was a study I found that was out of Europe, and it said 2% of females get tumor from those high levels of exposures, of which a small portion become cancerous in the womb of a woman. So this is like, okay, I guess I was wrong. And I thought about it a little bit, and I said, well, let me build one for you, because I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. And I actually designed products that protected my boy's groin area. And so I started building a couple of them for them, and then their friends wanted it. And all of a sudden, everyone sort of started to buy it, wanted to buy from us. So I got into the business of building shielding for products, for the devices around us. So what is the problem that we're really talking about? What is this stuff we're talking about, right? It's like, so every time you have a laptop in your lap, every time you have a cell phone in your hand, a tablet in your hand, all these devices, your refrigerator, your hair dryer, all of these devices generate a byproduct, electromagnetic radiation, if it's electrical AC. And if it's a cell phone or a laptop, there's a transmitter that's actually transmitting to your Wi-Fi. There's a transmitter transmitting to your cell tower. So when it's transmitting, it starts off as a tiny little ball and opens up more and more and more and more and more until it hits a cell tower 5 miles away. So it gives you an idea, it's pretty strong. And guess what? It's hitting your head at the same time. So is that a problem or not? We know it is. Medical research over the last 5 years or so has made it pretty seriously clear that there's potential dangers. And in fact, there was the federal government did a study, $25 million study recently, last 2 years.
$25 million study?
$25 million.
Wow.
They wanted to prove cell phones wouldn't hurt you. So they spent $25 million, did a epidemiology study, and they had these groups of rats that they exposed. And there was a statistically significant increase in frontal lobe cancer and in heart cancer. That same study was replicated in Europe with the Ramazani study, and it showed equivalent results. So you may want to debate it if it's going to bother you or not, but there is clear evidence that there is statistically significant increases from exposures. Mm-hmm. So what is the exposure actually? We talked about that little ball that opens up. That's called omnidirectional. It goes in all directions. And you may want to think of it as a wave that's going out into the cell phone, cell tower. You think of it as a wave on your, if you go at the ocean and you watch a wave come in, when you have one wave pass in 1 second, that's 1 hertz. When a cell phone has one wave, actually, all cell phones operate about 2 gigahertz. And that means 2 billion waves per second are passing by that one point. And of course, 5G, as we were talking about before, that can be up to 300 billion cycles.
How many times more is that than 4G?
Orders of magnitude time was orders of magnitude. It's huge numbers, differences. And by the way, in nature, this stuff doesn't exist.
Yes.
The way I like to talk about it is a cow doesn't generate emissions. All emissions are generated by man in the devices he creates. It was never a big deal until very recently, last 10 years or so, because I had a cell phone 10 years ago and I had no friend to call. None of us had this stuff around us. And now all of a sudden, we have it around it. In fact, when I worked at Bell Labs, there was a 500 foot away, I had a mainframe that was sitting operating, and I connected to it. That mainframe had major emissions. That same power that mainframe had, that mainframe computer had, was now on my cell phone, and I had it against my head.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an idea, it's fundamentally our environment has changed, and you got to be aware of it as a user of this technology.
Yes, and it's everywhere. You know, it's like if you live in a city and you know there's towers around you. You can see 5G towers everywhere around Orange County now, and I get so upset. Or if you have power lines close to you, depending on the power lines, I see 5G towers next to apartment buildings, and we're going to talk about all that stuff. And actually, what Dan's referring to, I actually got this device. I'm super nerdy. I'm actually the daughter of an electrician. So Dan, you would have appreciated the conversations going on around my house when I was home for the holidays. This is like our post-Thanksgiving daughter-dad time. And I was like, Dad, help me. How do I use this thing? And so this actually detects, and maybe you could describe it, Dan. This is, I bought this for $150. And I use this. Maybe you could describe it a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, it actually measures the amount of stuff in your environment that's close by you. If it's in the red zone, move. If it's in the green zone, you're safe.
So
but those meters, yeah, they're right. That you can see it. It actually grows, and if it really starts beeping a lot, run.
Yeah. So like you can hear it, you guys.
Right.
You can't see it. My dog's freaking out. But that red that's happening is that's what happens when you touch your laptop. That's how much radiation and frequency is going through your body.
Right,
and
exactly.
So
and you're not aware of it.
Not aware. No, we're just touching this all day long, and then it's on our lap, and it's on our beautiful treasure zone.
Our cell phones have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cell connections. That's 3 transmitters coming out of a cell phone. Are you using all of them? Probably not, right? You just have to be aware of around your surroundings. I can tell you for sure, the federal government's not concerned about your health when it comes to these devices.
Yeah, let me take a pause for a moment real quick before we start getting into the questions, because we're going to go through all of them. So you guys, if you're listening right now or later, we're giving everybody a week to win the grand prize. So if you guys are listening to this and you're like, whoa, wait a second, these people are not quacks. Fun fact, I can talk like quacks. So fun fact, we're not quacks. If you guys share this with your people, tag your friends, and then also head on over to Instagram, check out Radiation Nation, not Radiation Nation, but that's the book. If you go to DefenderShield and hit follow, and then also Diane Kaiser, which is Hormone Warrior Diane. This is how you're going to be entered to win. So share this with friends, comment below, ask questions. We really want to hear this, because this really is not one of those quackery topics. You're probably going to see that somewhere. If you do a Google search, you'll see that we're quacks. But that's what people are trying to do who have a lot of money at stake to lose because of people like us who speak up about the truth. So we're going to talk about the frequency too, because like Dan and I were talking about earlier, this is a very common thing. This is not just 2% or 5% of people. This is like large percentages of people, and it's happening to all of us. And we're not saying stop using your phone, stop using your computer, go live in a bubble. We're going to have solutions for you along the way so that you can just work with it. Not, you don't need to change your life radically. It's just making some big, decisions that are products that can support you. So Dan, let's get into first of all, the governmental element of this, because, what I learned when I started using this device is that, like in the UK, places like Austria are like super protective over EMF and EMR. They won't even allow devices or anything that's like farther down than like 3 green. And America says that it can be all the way into like that first or second yellow and like no big deal. So can we talk about what's going on there with like
exactly
protecting us? And
I'll tell a little bit of a story first to give you a parallel. When I was 12 years old, I was a big man, and I started smoking cigarettes. At that time, there was clear evidence of a direct link between smoking and cancer to the lungs. The research community knew it, but the general public didn't. Fast forward to today, of course, everyone knows it's a direct link, right? Well, research is without any doubt whatsoever clear that there is direct links to body impacts, some of them pretty serious cancers. So there is a debate. If you're on the $23 trillion industry per year and you're establishing your position in the marketplace, you've got a lot of money to spend. But it's the colleges, the researchers of the world that are really countering those measures. And so you're right, there's controversy still, but there's none if you investigate the research that's been done. There's just no doubt we are being affected. But let's talk about the FCC. 30 years ago or so.
What does FCC stand for?
Federal Communications Commission.
Cool.
They wrote the standard for a cell phone. They said it can't exceed this power level, 1.6 watts per kilogram. They can't exceed that power level. That power level, they said, is safe. Well, what did they use to determine safe? They decided they were going to take a 6-foot male, because there was a lot of military knowledge at that time of a 6-foot male skull. And they said, we're going to look how much it heats up when he uses it against his head. So the standard says it can heat up by 2 degrees. That's all they worried about, the thermal impact for a 6-foot male. Of course, today, you have a 6-year-old child using a cell phone. And believe it or not, everything I mentioned before, none of it is related to thermal. All of it is related to biological impacts. How it impacts the cell, how it breaks down the cell, how it creates DNA damaged cell, mutated cells. All of that was never considered by the FCC. And as you were pointing out before, with up to 4G, there is a pulsing signal, on, off, on, off, and on, off. That's what's impacting the cell. With 5G, there's multiple on, off, on, off, on, off. It's like a jackhammer. If I take a piece of steel and put it on concrete, it won't break if it has 10,000-pound load on it. If I lift it up, drop it down, lift it up, the concrete will break. Well, that's what happens to the membrane of the cell. It breaks down the cell. And because it's constantly hitting. And when you go to 5G and you have multiple signals coming in, hitting your cells, my speculation is it may very well be worse than what we have today. So the FCC, responsible for the standards, only constrained it to thermal, not biological. And it was for analog service, not digital service that's pulsing. And by the way, what is a 2 gigahertz, roughly a 2 gigahertz signal? When you take I don't have a microwave, but if you have a microwave and you put a piece of meat inside a microwave, when you turn it on, you have a microwave signal about 2.3 gigahertz. There's virtually the same speed as your cell phone. And it heats the water up between the cells oscillate, and you have cooked meat. Well, guess what? That's what's going on when it hits you. You know, when you feel warm when you're using a cell phone, it's because your meat's being cooked. It's a microwave signal. So that's so much for the FCC. You should not expect them to defend you on the standards. You need to make sure you defend yourself and be aware of what this is.
I love that the name of your company is DefenderShield. I was a professional soccer player in America and Germany, and I played defense.
Oh, did you? Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to consider like myself, I'm a warrior for our temples and helping other people to be a warrior for their temples so they can defend themselves. And not in a paranoia state, but just like to be informed.
Yeah. Well, the fact was, when I began realizing what was going on, I realized I'm not a victim. I can take actions to help protect myself and my family by doing simple things around the house and minimizing dangers.
Yeah.
And that's what I am not a victim of any industry, chemical or otherwise.
Thank you. That's important because as a life coach, I also see people who can get, including myself sometimes, but more so my former self, that would get super worried and hyper vigilant about
Yeah.
stuff, and
Right.
actually work my way up to more of the disease than the actual toxin or invader
Right.
itself.
Right.
So this is really about like listening to your body. And it's very difficult, I think, to assess like, are EMFs affecting me, or like what's affecting me, because we're so
Right.
not in tune with our bodies. And that's what I do in our program, is to teach women to learn the wisdom of our symptoms and what they're trying to say. And instead of going, oh, I have a headache, I'm going to go get some ibuprofen, or I'm having like seizures, I'm going to go get some medication for it, is to really ask the questions. Or like, or this one, Dan, I'm infertile. Is it my husband? Is it me? But we're going to go spend $15,000 on IVF therapy, and it didn't work the first or second or third time. So we're going to spend 50 grand on it, instead of going, why am I not fertile to begin with? So I love to start getting into how the listeners can make this personal to them. And this is where the light bulbs are going to start coming up, you guys. So really pay attention to when Dan answers this. What are some of the health concerns and symptoms, whichever one you want to start with, maybe symptoms first, that people might notice if they are hypersensitive to any kind of EMF and EMR?
Yeah, I really want to talk a little bit about the womb.
Great.
One of the business associates I have is probably the most well-known X-ray expert in the world. And he read my book, and he knows X-rays, ionized radiation, that which knocks the cell out of its orbits. And I said to him that when you have a woman put a cell phone in their pocket, on their pants pocket, there's a potential for that signal, because it's omnidirectional, to hit the egg within the womb. It can damage the cell, or DNA damage, or mutate the cell. He sort of didn't believe it was true. And I sort of pointed out to the research that's been done. He just needed to understand it a little bit.
Right.
He fast forward to about a year or two ago. He literally called me up and he said, I had a young woman who had technology around her all the time. Her laptop was in her lap, her cell phone was in her pocket, and she had a baby that passed away immediately. She had all these very, very strange mutated cells that within the child. And he said, I couldn't explain it. The only way I could explain it was the way you explained it. There was an exposure in the egg of the womb, and she somehow had a DNA damaged cell. What's interesting is he took all the technology away from her, basically. He said, keep all this away. She had a healthy child a few years later. So a good story. Be careful with where you put your technologies around you.
Yeah, sisters, especially listening. I did this too before I knew. They're still making sports bras and spandex pants and tights, like these things. And I pretty much live in spandex because I'm very active, and they are comfortable to me. But what's not comfortable is that I just bought a pair of pants from Lorna Jane. I love them. I'm one of the ambassadors. But when there's a pocket on the side of the thigh, which specifically is for your cell phone, there were those like Wonder Under Stuff It bras from Lululemon, and they had a pocket right here in the sports bra. And before I knew this, oh my God, I was putting it right there. And especially currently, I'm okay talking about this. I have breast implants right now, and I'm on my way to removing them because I've got some issues going on, major issues. And it could be the big reason why I have hypersensitivity to EMFs and EMR, which is to say I can't touch my computer. I get zapped immediately. So can we also talk about, when we start putting these things together, Dan, when you have EMF and EMR plus like all the toxins we're exposed to today, what could happen inside of the body?
Okay. I want to talk about the phone on the breast.
Yes. Please.
There was clear evidence in a study where there was actually marks on the breast where the women put the cell phone that generated cancers. It's not a debate. When you have it, you may be more susceptible. You may never have a problem, but your friend may. I don't know who will or won't. It's genetic. It's your health. There's a lot of things that sort of play into this to determine if you're going to have it or not. But let's talk about in general what exposures to emissions can do. In San Francisco 2 years ago, they gave many women in their first trimester meters. And they said, walk around and every day recognize what the readings are on your meters. After they did that, they came back and they collected the data and they found that you were 3 times more likely to have a miscarriage in that first trimester from high levels of exposure. And this was evidence that was created right in San Francisco. So we know that the body can be impacted. But let's talk about electromagnetic radiation hypersensitivity. More than 20% of the population has hypersensitivity, electromagnetic radiation hypersensitivity, and it's growing. 80% are women, 20% of men of that population. And why women more so than men? No one really has sufficient, clear, statistically significant evidence, but there's indicators of what this could be from. Hormone imbalance. Women have hormone imbalance that occurs when there's exposures, and that we know through research. We know that the immune system is suppressed. When you have a cell phone next to your body, it's literally suppressing your body's function to protect itself. And of course, that goes right to the gut. And if you don't have a healthy gut, then you're probably more susceptible than others because your immune system can't respond as well as it is. So you really want to make sure you have a decent, balanced gut. And watch your probiotics because most of that stuff dies in the first quadrant. You really want to find probiotics that last through the body. Minerals. Why women, not men? Hormone imbalance and from the pill. They use aluminum carriers. So the minerals of the body are now imbalanced. 100 years ago, when you and I went and we bought spinach at the store, it had 100 milligrams of iron. Today, it has about 10. So there's such a depletion of our earth that is now replicating problems within the body because we don't have the minerals we typically used to have. And so we know body balance is important through the immune system. We know chemical imbalance can create problems. And of course, then there's the whole raft of neurological stuff going on. ADHD has been associated with this. Alzheimer's has been associated with this through studies. Anything kids, we have more problems with kids statistically than we had 10 years ago. Is there a direct correlation? Some studies suggest it is. Do we have enough data to say definitively? No, we don't.
Are you referring to like how they have seizures and ADD, ADHD, and also autism? All of those things?
all that's directly related. In fact, the neurologist I work with, Dr. Court, he's in Washington. His practice deals with this, and believe it or not, he does very much all the same things I suggest. Get it away from you.
Yeah.
Minimize the dangers. It's as simple as that. But I was one of the things he specializes is in concussions, which 20 to 30% of us all are concussed sometime in our lives. And what I can tell you for sure, remember I said 1.6 watts per kilogram, the power level of a cell phone? If you have 0.1, 15 times less power level, you can have damaged DNA cells in the frontal lobe of the brain as a result of that exposure. There's studies that show very, very, very little bits of exposure can have major impacts to the body. And guess what? The reason why is the body can't protect itself at those very, very low levels.
Yeah, this is one of the quotes I love from your book because the sleep is a major issue for people
yeah.
today. And it's like, why can't I sleep? Well, melatonin can only help so much, but let's dive even deeper, which is what we do in our practice. Let's go to the roots and let's look at things that actually work, like spore-based probiotics and probiotics that are not just transient.
Right, exactly.
Before they even get to the gut. So if you're going to do it right and do it with
exactly
a practitioner who knows what they're doing. So this is a quote from your book. A 2010 study found a significant disruption of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone made in your adrenals,
right.
as well as your pineal gland. But they found a significant disruption of melatonin in the pineal gland due to EMF exposure. According to the report, the pineal gland is likely to sense EMFs as a light, but as a consequence, may decrease the melatonin production. Melatonin regulates the body's sleep-wake cycle, and if normal production is disrupted, it could possibly lead to long-term health effects. One of them, we talk about sleep, but melatonin is a powerful anti-inflammatory that also can help to prevent cancer and inflammation in general, and pain and hormone problems. So the pineal gland is right here in the forefront of that's your intuition.
Right, exactly.
That's your intuition.
I was talking, Diane, I was talking to a podcaster, a wonderful lady I was talking to, and I was explaining to you, don't ever put a cell phone near your bed. Don't ever have electronics near your bed. Even your clock, you want to put 4 foot away or more, because there's emissions that are occurring. And she was very nice. She said, oh, that's nice, that's nice. She called me up a month later and she said, I can't believe it. I'm actually sleeping. She used to put the phone next to her bed. And that constant load to her body, and her husband's for that matter, was disrupting her sleep. And it disrupted the melatonin, the creation of melatonin. But as you know, what's even worse is your circadian rhythm is screwed up at that point. Mm-hmm. When you screw that up, the body breaks down in so many different ways, you can't tell what the sources are. Yeah. But one of the worst things, I can't sleep, but that's not the worst thing. It's the circadian rhythm disrupting all your other biological functions within the body. In fact, there's 4,500 body functions within the body that are impacted from electromagnetic radiation exposures.
Wow.
4,500.
And we can't.
Melatonin is one.
Right. We can't list them all in one show. But specifically also the work of Dietrich Klinghardt refers to mold and mycotoxins. Mycotoxins is the garbage, that mold that grows inside of our body, that also grows in like 30% of commercial buildings now, because they're just basically painting over toxic black mold and saying, okay, it looks fine, because that's also an unregulated market. So you got all these people who are breathing in mold and mycotoxins, and depending on their genetics, they might not be clearing the mold very well. Women with breast implants have a really high level of mold and mycotoxins in the body. And when you put EMFs and mold together, as per his work, they see that it amplifies by 600 times. So it's also possibly why I'm sensitive too. And I'm interested to see if when I remove these implants and the detox, period that I go through after, if it will get better. But every person is so different, genetically different, like you said, and how much we're exposed to other chemicals. And I'll talk a little bit about this after the show, about some solutions we have in our practice with looking at minerals and why it's important to look at minerals and metals, because one will displace the others, and minerals make your hormones. I'd like to get into some of the things here coming up, wrapping up, and then also any closing thoughts. But the main thing I want to get into now is, like I said earlier, you guys, we have a 20% off discount coupon. So thank you for Dan and for your company for putting this on the map for us. Use Warrior 20 if you go to DefenderShield.com. The things I recommend is that the ones that I like the most is I have this for my cell phone. And then also earbuds, because earbuds, we're doing a lot of like wireless earbuds today. And I use mine once in a while, but like so many of us are using those little white ones that are always in our ears that have no wire. And this is just putting radiation straight into the brain. And when aluminum has a tendency to go up here, you get those two together and you just don't know what's going to happen. Right. And we're sicker than ever because of this combination. They can't say one study versus another, but you put them together, it's so hard to follow. So I recommend getting the earbuds. I recommend getting this. And then I also have this on the ground too, which this, I know this protects your lap. If you're going to put it in your lap, I don't recommend putting it in your lap, but this is a cell phone case, or a laptop case, that at least if you're going to put it close to you, put it there. It doesn't protect your stomach as much, but
Actually, it doesn't need to, and I'll explain why.
Oh, great.
I want to give you two rules of thumb. The first is time and distance. If you use a cell phone for 3 minutes and you put it down, don't worry, you're going to be fine. If you go a long period of time, that's when you start worrying.
Mm-hmm.
So simple use of knowing where stuff is and where it needs to be safe. When it's right against your head, it's 100% dangerous to you. When you have it 1 foot away, 80% of the danger is gone. By 4 foot, 98%. So what does that mean? It means move it away from you and you're perfectly fine. The other rule of thumb is very simple. I talk about it as bees in the room. Today, you have your Roku, your laptop, your cell phone, all transmitting. You don't need all those transmitters on. Turn them off. One bee won't kill you, 1,000 will. Mm-hmm. So turn those devices off when not using. In fact, at night, if you have a router, put a $10 timer on it. It turns your router off. You don't even have to remember to turn it off. And when you wake up in the morning, you turn it back on. So little simple things that you can do, reduce the exposures. And as you were pointing, reducing mold exposures, mildew exposures, cleaning those kinds of things up are an action you have to take. So too with the emissions. You got to make the time and effort to find out where all your bees are in the room.
Yeah, to not get stung for sure. I mean, you guys, what I've done, because I was so sensitive, it wasn't even just like I heard this and I went, okay, well, I'm educated, but I also would recommend if you're hearing this and you are educated now, because with all this information, that you consider this. It doesn't take a lot of money and effort to create this. Like my computer right now is a foot away, and you just heard Dan, 80% reduction. So I've got an external keyboard, and I also, I have to travel this way, Dan. I got like, I got a wired mouse, not a wireless, a wired mouse. I got a wired external keyboard, and it's not that hard. It's not that heavy. They were just like, I think I spent like $80 maybe on the external keyboard, the external mouse, the little plugs for it, because I had more, USB plugs. But I literally cannot touch, and I don't ever want to touch this ever again. You guys saw this thing pop up. You guys saw this. Yeah,
exactly. What you just said is the simple things you do.
Yeah.
Keep it wired. Why connect to a Wi-Fi? Use an Ethernet connection to your cell phone, or your laptop, and there's no emissions coming out of it. It's not hitting you. You have a screen monitor. You're not using your laptop monitor. That's a really great idea, because there's very, very little emissions coming off of modern monitors today. And the keyboard, the remote keyboard, wonderful idea. You're reducing the exposures. So you're minimizing, creating an environment that's most likely best for you, particularly if you're women, as I said.
Dan, what about also, because like you said earlier, with children who are using devices all day long, what can we do for these children?
Honestly, giving your children a cell phone or a tablet as a pacifier is very, very dangerous. Look, I've been around a long time. My exposure's 10 years. Your child at 6 years old has another 60 years to go of exposure. What's the probability of you having excess exposure over that lifetime? Far more than mine is. And then you have the 5G coming about. And, I like to tell the story. I haven't, the neurologist I had mentioned, Dr. Court, he called me up on a weekend one day and he said, my headache, I can't stand it. I know there's emission somewhere around me. What's going on? And I said, describe where you are. Well, I just got this new cabin and I have a new service in. I said, what kind of service? I have a cable service. What kind of cable service? And he said, I'll go look. And he went and looked and he found a 5G router on his table. That's how he was getting his cable service. Mm-hmm. And he turned it up and sure enough, it was 5G service. I said, turn it off, because that is a transmission that's far different than everything else you've ever seen. And he turned it off within a few hours. His headaches went away. Yeah. In fact, it's a great story to tell you. if when you're within 1,000 feet of a cell tower, you're 3 times more likely to have cancer.
Yes.
3 times more likely.
What's the website that you can check to see if you have one?
Those data are. I think we have it on our blog. Take a look at our blogs. I think we have it there.
Okay, I'll share.
The reason I tell you that story is because with 5G, it's so fast, it can go only really, really short. So every 750 feet, there's going to be another tower. So now where before there were 5 miles in between each other, now they're 750 feet between each other. Whether that's going to impact you or not, I can't tell. No one knows yet.
Right.
Because no research, none, has been done on 5G speeds of 10 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. None.
Yet it was approved without our voting on it.
Yeah, right. They went ahead and did it. And by the way, 90 gigahertz, which is right in the middle of the spectrum that's been allocated by the FCC, active denial. You know, when you have a crowd and you want to disperse the crowd, there's a gun that they shoot at you, right? It's a 90 gigahertz emission coming out of the gun. 90 gigahertz. That's right in the middle of 5G. And you know what it does? Your sweat glands act as an antenna and draw it in. So when you see people in crowds running really fast and burning up, it's because their antenna are pulling in that signal. Well, that's what 5G is, a 90 gigahertz signal. Will it have the same effect as that crowd? Probably not. Will it have an effect? Absolutely. And we just don't know. No one knows.
Yeah. And there's so many devices today too that my clients have used, and because I've educated them to look out for this stuff, or even their husbands that did not, they were like, oh, my husband got a Apple Watch for Christmas. And this is one of my clients, and she texted me and she's like, he was having all sorts of problems. He was having sleep issues. He had allergies. Like, I touch this stuff and I sneeze. Right. So it's like, if we start to know to look out for things, we can realize that these two are connected. So she's like, you know what? I'm not even taking a chance. We use these like devices. We put them on our body. They're on us 24/7. There's birth control, where you could, not birth control pills, but like birth control devices where you put them on while you sleep and they're just on you. And it's like, this is, it's trading one issue for another. So it's really about, in some respects, moderation, but I think it could be moderation with protection is the best thing. And then being aware and also knowing, like, do I have a smart meter I'm sleeping next to? That's the other thing. That's all in your book. And those are all things that
you got to be aware of that. By the way, I love yoga, and I had a yoga teacher on right after Christmas. She came to me and said, look what I have on my wrist. I know what my pulse is. I know what my this is. And I said, what are you, nuts? That stuff is transmitting all the time to your cell phone. That is a source of emissions that can affect your body. Why are you even thinking that's a good thing? And about 2 weeks later, she started feeling it and she couldn't use it anymore.
Yeah.
But be aware.
Be aware. Like, this might be a seed plant, you guys, that later on starts to grow into a bigger tree, and you start to see how this all connects together. And like, even animals and pets are getting cancer today too. They're breathing in the same heavy metal rich air that we are, and drinking the same heavy metal rich water and heavy metal rich supplements and foods. And those things are knocking out our minerals. And when our minerals are not in our body, we can't make our hormones, and we start to have all kinds of imbalances. So this is not just a war on humans and children. This is also animals and pets that are growing tumors and things. Like, that's the last question I have for you, Dan, is do you have anything to say about how the rise of animals today and our pets and having all these huge tumors? Do you think that it has something to do with EMFs and EMRs?
It very well can. There is clear evidence that the potential is there. But let me go back to the metal toxins in the body. What happens is your body changes its electrical characteristics, its current flow within the body. When it disrupts that and changes that because of that content or lack of content, it disrupts how your body functions. I can take a cell phone and put it to my heart, and you can push my arm down. Try it. The cell phone influences the strength of your arm. Take it away and you have strength. You're an electrical being. And when you start bringing these things, putting it into your body, is an impact. Some don't see it as much as others. You're somewhat lucky in the sense that you can feel it and you avoid it. Others are not until it's too late.
Yeah.
I tell the story about a 16-year-old child. Her parents wanted a cell phone. She wanted a cell phone. Parents reluctantly gave it to her. And she incessantly used the cell phone. And this is when I was developing DefenderShield shielding for the cell phones. And 1 year later, she died of frontal lobe cancer. And the parents, of course, firmly believe it was from the cell phone.
Yeah.
I know she could have been a bit more aware of what the potentials could be in their health, that she would not have passed away. In fact, by the way, 2% growth in frontal lobe cancers over the last 10 years. Is it an accident? No, to your point, these things are correlated. As you say, you got to know your environment. You really do.
Yeah. And it's toxins. It's our EMFs. It's our toxic thoughts. It's
right.
Some of the trauma
Yeah.
of kids.
If you're electrohypersensitive, you're 99.9% probable you're chemically sensitive.
Yeah.
So when you smell the perfume, that's a toxin to your body. And so that's what happens when you're exposed. Your body's reacting in the same way it did to that volatile organic compound that it can't take.
And there's some people who may not even have symptoms. They're reacting to EMF, EMR. So that's a really good symptom. That if you are aware of your body, that when you smell like Glade plugins and perfume and all these junk, we're putting trash all over our body in the form of like cosmetics and lotions and deodorants, and they're full of trash. If you are chemically sensitive to those, which we all really are, it's just a wide degree of if you know it now or know it later, you're 99.9% likely to be sensitive to EMF and EMR as well.
Right.
So there's not a lot that you have to do to protect yourself from this. There's little baby steps. I highly recommend, again, going over to DefenderShield.com, grabbing this book. It's super rich. It's got like the top things that you can do on page 112. And then also, like I said, if you guys share this and tag your friends, and then make sure you can head on over to Instagram and follow DefenderShield as well as me, Hormone Warrior Diane. Someone's going to get this for free. I had to pay for this myself. And remember, it also, if you're not the winner of this, you can go to DefenderShield.com, use Warrior20 to get these things. There's 4 things we talked about today, which was the laptop case, the book, the earbuds that are not electronically sending transmitters to your brain, which brain issues are rampant today, and then also this case. Those are the 4 things that I would recommend. Huge reduction of EMF, EMR exposure. Gosh, Dan, I can't wait to share this with my dad, who is an electrician and texted me when we were on the show, of course. I spiritually texted him and he showed up. So he's going to be like, what? Wow.
Hey, I got to tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
Because we haven't talked about it. Light, the spectrum of light, the stuff around us, is electromagnetic radiation. They call it visible electromagnetic radiation. The blue component of that is dangerous to the eye. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about melatonin before. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at a monitor at night, it's screwing around with your retina. It's screwing around with the controls of your body. Blue light is potentially fairly dangerous, and it certainly disrupts the circadian rhythm. But it also can do premature macular degeneration. There are other things. Dry eye. So, like, if a doctor says take a bunch of drops and put it in your eye every other day, so you have wet eyes, and you're using a monitor all day, and you're still getting dry eye, try getting blue blocking glasses, because it's the blue component of the spectrum that's really bothering you. Not necessarily you're susceptible to dry eye because you have dry eye. Right. It's being driven by that exposure. So
Yeah, and the fluorescent lighting. You know?
Yeah, anything that has a blue component to it. Yeah.
And our body goes, okay, it's still sunny outside. I'm not going to make melatonin to fall asleep. It's like sunny, but there's so much to this. That's the fifth one I would say is check out the blue blockers. I have 3 pairs of them. I carry them in my purse. I have them in front of my computer, and I have them in my room. So they're like everywhere. And after 6 o'clock, they're on. If you don't want to get the glasses, you can do things like at least you could download Flux to your computer, and at least a little bit more orange light. And then you could also do that on your cell phone, which is like kind of a feature of the iPhone now. But still, I mean, there's so many takeaways from this, and there's a lot more to talk about, but that's why I recommend grabbing his book, because 5G is going to just keep going, and just stay updated on their blog on DefenderShield.com. And then of course, I'm going to keep sharing this stuff on my blog and on the show as well. So Dan, thank you so much for being a defender of our temples and looking at how we can be more electric in like a good way instead of electric in a bad way.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed our chat today. I really did. And I think it's so important for people to understand their environment. And if we can help educate a little bit, and they get a little bit more knowledgeable about their environment, they now have a better way of protecting themselves and their family. So thanks again for inviting me.
Thanks again to you, Dan. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If this episode really tugged at your soul and you're ready to have your personal breakthrough, we would love to have a heart-to-heart with you to get you crystal clear on 3 things. What do you want? What's standing in your way? And how do we get you to your soul goal in the fastest time possible? Visit my site, DianeKaiser.com/call to schedule your free 1-hour connection session with one of our warriors to map out exactly how you want to look, feel, and live. We've helped thousands of women warriors just like you all around the world free themselves from the symptoms and suffering they never thought possible. And you just might be our next success story. Talk soon.